The year is 451 AD. The place is Chalons in the Champagne district of France. The Roman general Aëtius has gathered an army to confront Attila the Hun, whose barbarian tribes are rampaging across Europe. Today, the fate of one of these armies rests with a team of instructors from the Bristol Army Cadet Force, made up of 2 generals.
We need to be hitting them here.
And 2 lieutenants.
They've stopped.
Watched by experts and using state-of-the-art technology, the team will refight this battle and attempt to change the course of history. This is Time Commanders. With Eddie Mayer inside a 21st century military command centre and taking control of the battlefield are a team of instructors from the Bristol Army Cadet Force. Jackie Harper, rank General. Chris Starbuck, rank General. Gary Forder, rank Lieutenant. Pat McSherry, rank Lieutenant.
Tell me about what you do.
We all work for Western RFCA, which is a Reserve Forces and Cadet Association. We look after the cadets in the Bristol area.
And have you appointed yourself General, Chris?
I think so, to a certain degree, with the backing of the rest of the team.
Democratic decision.
Yeah.
Pat,
Yes.
You're fond of running
I am, yeah.
and
yeah.
golf.
I am. Yeah.
Good at both?
Running, not too bad. Golf, absolutely terrible.
Gary, you're very good at running. You've run a lot of marathons, and you're soon to run the Great Wall of China and the Sahara Marathon.
That's the plan.
Be
That's
awfully
the lie
tiring.
about being good at it. I'll just run and just put my head down and enjoy myself.
As if that wasn't sporty enough, Jackie, you have ridden rodeo before.
Yes, yeah, I got the opportunity to work on a dude ranch as the first female wrangler.
Chris, though, your CV reads like classic Army. Ex-Army officer.
Yeah.
Doesn't get more butch than that. You hold many national records for running in Hong Kong. You all run. Do you run?
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
Oh, right, OK.
Still do, yeah, every day.
You might want to before we're finished. And you were a backing dancer for Nina of 99 Red Balloons on Top of the Pops in the 1980s.
It's probably more like I was in the background when Nina was there.
Were you
strutting my
dancing?
stuff. I was dancing there, yeah.
Do you want to show us what you did?
Not quite, not really. You know.
Well,
I was.
Hold on.
92.
Red balloons. Yeah.
That's the one.
And a bit more than that as well.
The Army, be the best.
So we don't mess about.
That was very nice.
Yeah.
Let's find out a little more about the battle you are going to fight. Arik and Sol, historical experts, have been authenticating the battle.
Dr. Arik Nussbacher, Senior Lecturer in War Studies, Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. Dr. Saul David, Military Historian and Author.
What do we have in store?
Well, it's the Battle of Chalons, fought in 451 on the plains of Champagne between the armies of the ailing Roman Empire, at least the western portion of it, and the mounted hordes of Attila the Hun, better known as the Scourge of God. And you, fortunately, are going to be playing the Huns.
To the Romans, you are the frightening race enemy. They view you as being subhuman, and that scares them.
And why does this battle matter? What's the significance of it?
Attila is trying to weld together a coalition of odd Goths and other people who are wandering around Europe at this time, and trying to set up almost in competition with the Western Roman Empire, which just at this point is falling to pieces. So you guys are trying to take advantage of the fall of the Roman Empire.
The team's first task is to examine the terrain to find out what, if any, advantage it might provide.
Now, what do you see there?
We've got the high ground here.
Oh, I can tell you're military. No one's ever done that before.
Oh, that's up in the pen, yeah. So we've got a good bit of high ground here, and you know, that could be quite useful.
One of the keys to this battle is the high ground. The team probably need to get there before the Romans do. Not necessarily to hold it, because their best chance of winning this battle is by maneuvering, but at least to stop the Romans from getting there, because if the Romans take it, they are always going to pose a threat to the flank of the Huns.
With this flat area as well, Chris, Romans, they like flat ground, don't they? Because of their formations, etc. And we got a lot of high ground there.
Jackie, Pat? Any thoughts?
No, I think quite good. I think we've got the high ground there. If we can take use of the high ground, it would be useful to us.
The Huns have got to deny that bit of vital ground to the Romans. They don't have to hold it. They're a cavalry-heavy army. The Huns can't really hold it.
No.
It's now the job of the lieutenants, Pat and Gary, to find out about the strength of Attila's Hunnic army and which units they themselves will be commanding. No one represents the unbridled fury and savagery of barbarism as much as Attila the Hun. His army has cut a swathe across Europe and has now turned its attention to the ailing Western Roman Empire.
Attila, of course, since this period has had a pretty bad press, and one of the reasons has been that most of the people writing about him were Romans. On the other hand, he was a nasty bit of work. He did lay waste vast areas of Europe. It was said of him, of course, that he was a dwarf. Not quite true, but apparently he did have a dwarf called Zerko that he actually tried to offer to the Roman general, so it said. He wasn't accepted, I suspect.
1, 2, 3, 4. There's your 5 infantry battalions there.
Yeah.
In Attila's Hunnic alliance, there are large units of Germanic infantry, effective in supporting his cavalry and disrupting advancing enemy lines. Pat will be commanding these troops.
The 2 at the front, I believe, is the heavy cavalry.
Pat will also command Attila's heavy cavalry, which was provided by his Gepid allies. These are excellent at the charge and in close quarter combat.
We've also got 1 unit of Germanic archers.
The final units under Pat's command are the Huns' Germanic archers. They carry axes as well as bows into battle and are aggressive soldiers best used in attack, as their lack of armor makes them vulnerable in defensive situations. At the charge, their brutality in battle is legendary.
The general, which I believe is Attila the Hun, he's right at the front.
So Attila the Hun,
He's right at the front.
he's leading them
He's
through,
at
is
the
he?
front, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Attila's in there.
Yeah.
Fine.
In his day, Attila was known to the Romans as the Scourge of God, and the devastation he caused in Gaul before the Battle of Chalons became a part of medieval folklore. So how will the team match up to his reputation?
Gary?
Right, Chris, on the left-hand side, I've got approximately 10 units of all-horse archers.
Yep.
Gary will be in charge of the troops that made Attila's army so feared, the mounted archers. Devastating with rapid arrow fire and short, sharp charges, their great strength is their mobility. Their only weakness is prolonged close-quarter combat, for which they only carry thrusting swords. They're joined by a troop of Hunnic nobles in the distinctive blue uniform of the steppes. Together, this Hunnic army has already laid waste to half of Europe.
And what do you think of what you've found, the 4 of you? What do you think of your own forces?
Well, I think
Smaller numbers.
it's a very small in numbers. It's divided up between, it seems, that horsemen with our infantry and bows with some heavier cavalry, but small in numbers.
All right. Okay.
Small but effective.
Small, effective, yeah.
Quickly outnumbered.
Bizarrely, without having seen the enemy troop strength, the team have convinced themselves that they are outnumbered. In fact, the armies are fairly evenly matched. Attila the Hun will be horrified at the team's defensive mentality so early on. The next job is to discover more about the Roman army they'll face across the battlefield.
This is a point where you might want to send out some scouts.
Definitely, yeah.
You might want to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Using my little scout group, which I've got, I can get myself scouted in there.
For the next stage of information gathering, Gary sends his scouts forward to find out about enemy troop strength.
Trying to avoid any form of contact.
The Roman general Aëtius is one of the most respected generals of the Western Roman Empire.
The thing about the Roman commander Aëtius is that actually he's got knowledge of the Huns, because as a boy he was held hostage by the Huns. He understands their ways, and this might give him a crucial advantage to understanding how the enemy are going to fight.
As the Romans no longer have the numbers of soldiers that had conquered Gaul many years earlier, General Aëtius has persuaded several warrior tribes to contribute to his army. With him on the left of his line of deployment is the mainstay of his army, the Roman heavy cavalry, key in defending the infantry flanks. Aëtius also has several units of heavily armed infantry, a formidable force in hand-to-hand combat. In the center are the Allan tribe, who have brought units of mounted archers. The Alans bear a close physical resemblance to their Hun enemy, but ride into battle with distinctive red saddlecloths. On Aëtius' right is the Visigoth king, Theodoric, who has brought large numbers of his fearsome cavalry and infantry units with their typical red and white shields.
Where are you going with your scouts, Gary?
Yeah, where am I going, did you say?
All right, you're going to have a look at those.
Yeah.
In his enthusiasm to complete a thorough search of the area, Gary sends his 8 Hunnic scouts behind the massed ranks of one of the largest armies of the Western Roman Empire. Unfortunately for him, their presence does not go unnoticed.
I'm trying to...
Gary, you're going to be attacked in a minute, mate.
Sorry?
Confident they're out of harm's way, Gary brings his scouts to a halt.
Gary, you're going to be attacked in a minute. They're coming over.
Right, OK.
Someone's coming towards you.
Retreat.
I'm going to get them out the roads.
Get back to get flat.
Gary,
Go,
Gary.
Go.
Gary.
Gary, get rid of
Comes
him.
the Roman cavalry.
At last, Gary notices the charging Romans.
I'm coming, I'm moving.
Thankfully, Gary's scouts proved too fast for the heavy Roman cavalry.
Come home, Gary.
Yes, we are, we're coming. Trust me.
They're going the wrong way, I'm afraid. They're heading straight back to the Roman army. They're about to be wiped out.
There's no reason to pick that fight.
Buoyed by their early success in outrunning the Roman cavalry and sensing an early victory, the 8 scouts now attack the left flank of the Roman army.
You've disorganised them, so...
Oh, was that the plan?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. There's always a cunning plan somewhere.
That is aggressive use of their recce forces.
So what do you think you're going to do?
Get on top of that hill as quickly as possible.
Up the hill as soon as you can?
Yeah.
With everything and everyone?
Well, I'd want to get most of my, or all if I could, troops up there.
Pat is less than convinced by Chris's plan.
Pat, you wanted to come in. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was actually thinking about, sending all the troops up to the top of the hill there might be probably a bit futile. I want to send some of them up to take control of the high ground, and maybe a left and right flanking movement.
Yeah.
Infantry up here, and cavalry for flanking.
I agree with the plan up to the point where he actually takes the infantry up the hill, because the problem with the infantry being on the hill is that they're going to be static. The rest of his army is going to be manoeuvring. The infantry is going to be stuck out on a limb in a position in which the Romans are going to want to take, and therefore when the Romans do advance, they're not going to be in a position to move back quickly enough.
There is potential for the Huns to get into a fight over a piece of dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't play to their strengths.
Right, Chris, I think we need to get these in there, pretty quick.
Because they're saying, otherwise you're going to move so...
The team's plan is to deploy most of their force on the high ground, with infantry in front and the mounted archers behind.
My main worry with this plan is that they're going to put the infantry up on the hill and then not be able to protect them if the Romans launch an attack in force against that hill. They can pull back their cavalry, but they won't be able to pull back their infantry at the same sort of speed, and it may be left out on a limb.
We want to get our cavalry, Pat,
Sorry?
your cavalry on top of that hill.
The cavalry on top of the hill.
Yeah, and Gary, your heavy cavalry on top of that hill.
You want on top or to the rear?
Yeah.
I'm going to put 4 to the rear, 3 to the left, 3 to the right.
Yeah,
Something I'll do.
that's right.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Next to deploy are the large numbers of mounted archers, the centerpiece of Attila's Hunnic army, and the troops which have won him such a fearsome reputation.
If the team allows that height, that hilltop, to transform from being vital ground that they must deny to the enemy and allow it to turn into the ground that must be defended at all costs, they will be asking for a bloodbath over a piece of dirt, just a hilltop that means nothing to them.
Right, don't put any attack in yet, Gary. Come round to the flanks of the... Don't put any attacks in yet with your cavalry. Come round to the side of the hill, because if they don't make any headway onto that hill, there's no point in deploying that cavalry.
The team begin a desperate race to get their troops to the top of the hill. If they've got their tactics right, the Romans will be doing the same from their lines on the other side. But if the Romans get there first, the advancing Huns will be highly exposed, moving as they are out of battle formation. Attila's men reach the top of the hill only to find they're alone. The Roman general Aëtius still hasn't moved. Either the team have gained an early advantage, or the high ground is not as much of a threat to the Romans as they thought.
How does this affect your plan?
What, them doing
What, the
nothing?
Romans?
No, I'm happy with that. I do believe if we can get onto the high ground, we can dominate things and control things.
If the Romans try to come up that hill, how will they try to stop them? Will they receive the Romans at the halt? Will they just stand there and let the Romans come up? Or will those howling Gothic barbarians pick up their axes and charge down the hill and disrupt the Roman formation as they come up the hill?
To help the cadet instructors team execute their plan, they now have a real-time satellite view of the battlefield. From their vantage point on the top of the hill, the Huns can see the clouds of dust, which mean the Roman army is on the move.
They'll be too far away if they need to engage anything.
Yeah. Bring yours forward as well.
Bring them forward.
Pat, yeah, bring them slightly.
Right, horsemen.
Your horses forward.
The team have deployed Attila's lightly armoured Hunnic infantry to the top of the hill, with their mounted archers behind them in support. Worried about their static deployment, Pat has a better idea for his heavy cavalry.
What do you reckon at this stage?
I reckon what we should be doing maybe is maybe do a bit of a right flank and hit them from the sides.
Pat would like to use the high ground to send his heavy cavalry to sweep down the right flank and attack the Romans from the rear.
Have you told them what you've seen?
Are they moving forward?
They're coming forward.
But Chris is totally distracted by the fact that the Roman general Aëtius is moving his Alan archers forward. Lacking any real cover, it's an ominous sign for Attila's men on the hill.
But we will engage them with the horsemen and archers now,
Just-
Gary.
yes,
You go
we-
into there, Gary.
Sorry, say again?
The team can't allow themselves to fight a defensive infantry battle because the Alans will come down and cut them up.
What seems to be happening is exactly the point you've made. The Alans are advancing. They're going to fire into these static infantrymen and cause casualties.
The Romans' Alan-mounted archers draw up within range of the Huns, who is silhouetted against the skyline. And the Alan archers unleash a devastating storm of arrows. The first lethal volley crashes down on the exposed Hunnic infantry. Without cover or heavy armor, they are defenseless and can only stand and await the next deadly hail of arrows. Seeing his infantry being slaughtered, Pat is desperate to get even.
What suggestion you might do is use my heavy cavalry if they come round down the side of the hill and hit them from behind. And just run me straight through them.
Pat manages to persuade Chris to let him unleash his heavy cavalry in an aggressive attack against the Romans. Pat's plan is to use them in a brutal hit-and-run attack on the rear of the Roman lines. The only hope for the team's isolated infantry on top of the hill is Pat's cavalry action, which might divert some Roman troops away from the battle. Attila would have been mortified to see his famously mobile troops stationary on this high feature, effectively target practice for the Romans' Alan archers.
Are your generals giving the protection you wanted? Because you've made suggestions about that.
The thing is, we haven't got anything else there to protect us anyway.
My bows are on the front as well, front of the hill.
All right, good luck. The Romans are coming.
Okie dokie.
The Romans are coming, and as Pat's cavalry race behind Roman lines to try to disrupt their advance, Chris's defensive strategy is causing tensions in the command centre.
Right, we've got two. Those are the two cavalry that are moving around the back.
Yeah.
I am hearing worries from your lieutenants.
In respect of?
Your plan.
Yeah.
No, they do have a few worries. You should talk to them before anything ghastly happens.
What are you doing there, Pat?
In response to the advance, Pat has brought his archers to the front of the line to engage the Romans.
Bring the archers in position now, and they're about to fire.
But they're a bit stranded, aren't they?
Stranded or not, at least Pat's action is an aggressive response to the Roman presence. Unfortunately, unlike the enemy's mounted Alan archers, the team's foot archers have much less impact against the heavy armour of the Roman infantry. If anything, they simply hastened the Romans' decision to advance, straight up the hill, towards Attila's lines.
It's a general advance by the Roman army, and I'm not sure the Huns are in particularly good shape here. They're not manoeuvring, that's the problem. They've got their infantry fixed on the hill.
Can we maintain that? That seems like...
Are they too far away for...
Chris, do you want my cavalry to hit their cavalry from behind?
Yes,
Yeah,
bring him in.
right, take them right behind the cavalry.
Pat has now managed finally to get his troops in a position to attack the Romans. This is exactly how the team should be using their highly mobile Hunnic forces, in lightning strikes.
Straight in behind them. At the gallop.
At this moment, Pat is the only member of the team using Attila's fearsome warriors to any effect. And they're about to show just how effective they can be.
Oh, would you look at that? Look at those Huns. They've just completely enveloped the Romans.
They have numbers and surprise on their side, and as a result, they tear through the enemy. Back in the command center, the team's most successful action of the battle so far has gone completely unnoticed by the generals.
We're going to have to hit those. Bring them back now.
The job of holding off the Roman heavy infantry advance has fallen to a small group of Hunnic archers, also controlled by Pat, who have become isolated in front of the team's line.
Bring them back now because...
Engage, because they're moving up close.
Yeah. Right, Chris, we're going to be up... my archers are going to be overrun in a minute, so I'm going to pull them back.
Yeah, pull them back.
I'm going to pull these guys back.
The archers are withdrawn in the nick of time. But Chris is still hanging on to the idea of defending the top of the hill with his poorly armed infantry, who have already suffered heavy losses. One of the team's major problems is that despite being undeniably in charge, at this critical point, Chris is having problems communicating his orders, just as the Roman heavy infantry arrive at the top of the hill. As the fighting begins, the mounted archers simply stand and watch.
We want to utilise the heavy cavalry to get in there and stay in there.
Do you think this has got something to do with NCO syndrome? You've got the ex-officer at the back, you've got the two NCOs at the front. They're probably frightened of acting without authority from their seniors.
Nobody has ever empowered them before.
Whatever the deficiencies of the team, things are looking bleak for Attila's men on the top of the hill. Gary manages to get his mounted archers to fire into the battle, but due to the nature of the close-quarter combat, they can't be sure who they're hitting.
Watch
You've got these archers.
Yeah, bring up yours from the right.
Acting decisively, Chris commits a unit of his mounted archers to a hand-to-hand fight with some of the Roman infantry. But it's hardly the hit-and-run tactics the team had planned.
See, look, they've taken this height and they're holding this height, and they're allowing the Romans free rein of the field.
With that free rein, the Romans have been able to bring up infantry support to their front line on the hill. The surprise for the Romans is just how few Huns there are left to fight when they get there.
Look at that. Romans just cruising around doing what they like, not harassed, because look at those Hunnish horse standing still. They're just standing there. Go out and kill something. Those cavalry are about to take a charge at the halt, which is not good for cavalry.
As the Huns are pushed back, Chris and the team have failed to notice just how close the Romans are to the famed and feared Attila. If they allow him to be killed, it would certainly send an ominous signal to the Huns and their allies.
Let's get in there with the horses.
You're retreating your archers on horseback. They need to go forward.
Pat, where's your cavalry?
Our cavalry's been attacked, mate. Our cavalry's been attacked.
The situation is slipping away from Chris. His obsession with holding onto the high ground has meant he's taken heavy losses, and more of his troops are being pushed off the hill. There is still a chance to remobilize his army, but he would need to move all of his units onto the lower ground to regroup them first.
Oh, for God's sake. Could you imagine the Huns just letting their horse just stand around doing nothing? For God's sake.
Chris has sent in cavalry to engage with the Roman infantry. but the highly mobile, lightly armed mounted archers are much better suited to an entirely different type of warfare. In spite of their superior numbers, 2 units of precious Hunnic cavalry are now bogged down in a bloody fight for the right side of the hill.
Are you guys sure you're heading in the right direction? Because you seem to be moving back down the hill.
No, we're going back up the hill.
Jackie has noticed a disastrous development, but neither Gary nor Chris have time to listen.
You look worried.
I'm worried because I've got 2 blue guys heading down the hill instead of engaging this way.
Who's running away at this stage?
What the generals have realized is that some of their troops are now being routed and are fleeing back towards the ford and their camp beyond. While the lieutenants have no chance of regaining command of these troops, Chris is having similar problems with Pat and Gary.
Can we get these archers in there on the horses?
Where are they? Where are these guys here now?
He's being completely ignored. Half of Gary's cavalry are taking heavy losses in an engagement with a compact formation of tough Roman infantry. The high ground just isn't worth these kinds of losses to the Hunnic army.
The team could pull themselves out of this hole if they take control of their cavalry and start going around and beating somebody up. They need to start hitting somebody.
We want to get in there. We need to, at the moment, we've got to push the Romans off the hill.
Right, the cavalry's moving up.
Yeah. So if we can get the cavalry, Gary.
Yeah, get my cavalry now to go forward on the left flank
go forward
and
because
come up from the centre.
With a quarter of their troops dead or routed, the Huns are still fighting the Romans for control of the hilltop. Chris chooses to reinforce his position, committing the remainder of his mobile forces to a static fight. He believes that rather than defeating his enemy, the main priority is to remain at the top of a hill already littered with the corpses of his men. To make matters worse, the one-sided fight on the right flank is brought to a swift conclusion by Roman reinforcements, who are driving most of the Hunnic archers back into the woods. The Roman general Aëtius now has complete control of the battlefield and has more units moving up to engage. Attila's as yet undefeated barbarian army, which before this battle had ravaged half of Europe, is now in complete disarray.
Are the lieutenants following your orders?
No, I don't think they are. Are we moving? We've got to start
Yeah,
getting...
we're moving.
Yeah?
Okay.
Come on, Gary.
We're moving, mate.
Yeah? You're going to engage that enemy?
Engage these guys now with arrows and then get in amongst
Let's get
them.
through them on the top of the hill, Gary.
The generals in the team have lost an overall view of the battlefield. Chris has moved up to the barrett. He's looking at the smaller picture. They can't really see what's going on all over the battlefield, and they're certainly not reacting to the danger of being taken bit by bit.
At the front of the hill, Pat's archers have attacked and defeated a unit of advancing infantry. But without tactical support, their attack on a unit of Roman heavy cavalry is futile. And the few survivors flee for the ford. And there's even worse news for the veteran barbarian leader and his generals.
This is Attila, and these are his senior commanders. For you to leave your general in a position of that amount of vulnerability is criminal.
Isolated from his fleeing forces and abandoned by the command center, Attila himself is being forced to fight for his life.
Attila is in this group, and the general, the key to the Hunnish force, is about to be killed.
Yeah.
It's unforgivable.
And Attila finally succumbs.
Attila the Hun, he's dead. Attila's dead.
With Attila's death, any hope of a Hun victory is beginning to slip away. Already the team have comprehensively lost control of the hill, and almost 3/4 of their army are either dead or on the run.
Gary, I think you've got some cavalry. They need to come round the back of the hill.
Despite Chris's efforts to rally his troops, the Romans' Visigoth allies now sweep forward to attack his Hunnic noble archers, regrouping behind the hill. It seems nowhere is safe for the Huns and their allies.
The whole point of the Huns being here was to deny the feature to the Romans. The Romans are now physically on the feature.
The team have failed to grasp the subtle tactical difference between holding ground and denying it to the enemy. Instead of standing off the hill in order to prevent the Romans from using it, they've fought a costly fight for territory which is ultimately worthless. But just when it seems Chris has no moves left, Pat comes to his aid. his heroic cavalry at last rally from their position behind the Roman lines and start a belated race to reinforce their Hun comrades on the hill.
How badly do you think it's going?
Very badly. I definitely think it's going badly because everybody appears to be running
Springs
away.
to mind. What we need to regroup then, so you're going to have to... You've got some of our troops going off to the north, some is shooting off to the south.
Pat's valiant heavy cavalry arrive on the hill to find Hunnic infantry corpses, fleeing Hunnic cavalry, and an awful lot of Romans.
We don't seem to be engaging any at the moment, so go. Hit those...
Are you taking the hill? Are you taking the hill? That was your plan.
The Romans are taking the hill.
Their recall has been too late. Without adequate support or numbers, they do the only honourable thing and throw themselves into the Roman lines. Their attack is short-lived. As the remains of the cavalry fight their way back to the safety of the ford, all Pat's troops are now either dead or fleeing. And with them goes the team's original battle plan.
So let's come off the hill into the woods then.
Now they're going to, now that they have expended so much blood on the hill, at least they've got the guts to cut their losses and get off that feature.
Using the tree line, under cover, get back onto the hill.
All right, now look at that. Look at those Roman cavalry. They're chasing the Huns off the field. The Huns are heading for that ford in the river. The Huns are trying to get out of it, and ruthlessly, relentlessly pursuing them are those Roman cavalry.
They're still running away at the moment. We need to regroup the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what they're doing now, boss.
Yeah.
Chris's plan has totally failed. With Attila dead, only 2 units of mounted archers now remain, hiding in the trees. The remainder of the once proud Hunnic army are being chased off or massacred. Adhering to a strict command structure has meant the team's most aggressive tactician, Pat, has been sidelined. As the generals try to defend the hill, Pat has had to watch most of his infantry die under relentless archery. It's an ignominious end for these fearsome warriors.
Our guys have disappeared. See, we can't do anything this end because our guys are routing.
Right, you're going to have to support Gary then. Can you move over and support Gary?
Move any guys over to support Gary? No, I can't do nothing this side.
Okay, we'll have to regroup then, yeah?
But both Pat and Gary have been unwilling or unable to make an impact on Chris's decision-making.
So I can't do nothing now because they're all routed. They're all routing.
So you've got nothing to do?
No. Just sit and watch me bloody massacred.
Gary, what have you got left?
I'm going to do a Mel Gibson to stand in the hill and show me ass.
No, it's fine. Just you. Relax.
Right, we've lost the hill. We can't get those 2 up here, can we?
Chris's plan was to take and hold the top of the hill, something that would have been almost impossible with the troops he deployed to do this. Attila was called the Scourge of God, and for good reason. His army was feared across the Western world. But under the command of this team, they've been reduced to a disparate rabble. Nevertheless, spotting the 2 remaining units of mounted archers sheltering in the woods, Chris sees a chance finally to make his mark on the battle.
The Romans are split at the moment. All right, the Romans are split at the moment.
The last of Attila's army fires a parting shot at the Romans before racing down the hill to reform for a fresh attack.
We're just regrouping here now. There is not a lot on that hill. I mean, tell me if you think I'm wrong.
It looks as if Chris is recognizing the hill's real strategic significance. Instead of trying to hold the ground, it seems he's now going to try to use the height for an attack with what remains of his mounted archers on the rear of the Roman lines.
Sack that hill, all right?
Chris sends the 40 survivors of Attila's once feared army back up the hill. This last gasp action is either a daring change of tactics or a hopelessly vainglorious charge in the classic tradition of military folly.
It looks like the team is starting to take control of the battlefield again. Let's see if they can do it.
Quickly as possible, we want to hit the ones on the hills because they're going to start to regroup otherwise.
Right, okay.
In order to reach the top, the Huns will have to pass the right flank of the Roman army and their deadly mounted Allan archers. It's a last chance to salvage some dignity or join the other corpses that now litter the hill.
Cavalry, we'll fight right the way through.
All we need to do now is get these guys regrouped, get straight back up the hill, fight the way through.
The deadly accuracy of the Allan archers begins to deplete their numbers, and they're about to make a familiar mistake.
They've stopped.
They've stopped.
They've stopped.
That's been their problem all the way through the
The
battle.
hope at this stage is to hit and run, hit and run.
And we know that the Roman cavalry are on their way. We can see
Oh,
them.
look at that! Look at that steamroller coming up behind them. They're going to get matched.
With a huge unit of the Roman Visigoth cavalry after them, the Huns head for the safety of the tree line. Unfortunately, it's not quite as safe as they'd imagined, and the pursuing Visigoths are on a roll. Chris has become obsessed with the single concept of getting back on his hill, but the message has yet to filter through to his lieutenants.
You're going to have to be quicker because you've got something coming up from behind. Let's get through them on the top of the hill, Gary.
You want me to go where?
Straight away, rip through them.
Okay, okay.
With one unit blocking their escape, another unit of Roman Visigoths rushes to the top of the hill to cut off the last of Attila's Huns.
Turn round.
We need to be hitting them here. Come on, Gary.
They're coming, mate.
There is hope
They're
here,
coming
but
the wrong
everybody's chasing
way.
up from behind.
Gary's last-minute swing wide at the top of the hill has given the Roman cavalry the chance to meet them head-on as they break cover to try to reach the summit. At a stroke, Chris's plan is finished, and so is his ambition to lead the fearsome barbarian army to a famous victory.
Okay, mate, if we can get these guys right up to the top of the hill.
Let's hit them with the archers. Are we putting any arrows in there?
Why don't you go and shout at them?
Yeah. Gary, we're not engaging at all.
Effectively trapped in amongst the massive Roman army, the survivors try to flee, but Chris remains characteristically optimistic.
Charge. Just charge, Gary. Hit them. Charge.
In the tragic tradition of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, the lone survivors of Attila's army ride on to face the kind of odds you just can't beat.
Get back onto the hill.
We can't get across.
They're all running away.
Oh my.
Lost control.
Defeat
Well, we
imminent.
came second.
Defeat imminent.
It's not over yet. Oh, it's over now.
You are defeated.
Well,
Too bad.
defeated.
Too bad.
Too
Lieutenants, come back up.
You are defeated.
Dead.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for that.
No.
Gary?
All in a day's work.
Come on.
Did you match history? Did you beat history? You didn't beat anything else. So, gentlemen, what do you think?
It was never going to work from the word go. And the problem was, sadly, they identified the high ground. It was the right thing to do. You needed to prevent the enemy from getting to the high ground, but you shouldn't have stayed on the high ground. Right. Your tactics, your troops work best in a hit-and-run way, which you identified. You were talking about it.
Yeah, you kept saying hit and run, yeah.
You realised mobility was the key to this battle, and you got completely fixated on the high ground. When I heard you were taking your infantry up there, I knew you were scuppered. Why? Because you would then try and defend the hill, and you would probably pour your cavalry up to protect them. Yeah. Instead of using them against the Roman army as a whole, you basically allowed the Roman army complete tactical control of the battlefield, and they did pretty much what they wanted to.
Yeah.
See, I don't agree that you didn't have a chance once you had that concept. You could have held on to that concept and make it work for you. Because there was a point in the battle when you realized that it was going wrong. You realized that holding that one feature, which it was vital ground at the beginning of the battle, and you wanted to deny it to the enemy, well, there was a point at which you realized it was worthless to you. But you couldn't stop it all from going to hell. You were out of control, and I'll tell you why I think that was. The lieutenants were not empowered to fight their own battle. The lieutenants did not feel that they understood the commander's intent well enough to get their heads down and take their cavalry and use them flexibly. You guys fought like infantry people in command of cavalry. And you didn't have Jackie doing anything useful at all. And that was also a problem. Half of the brain power of the headshed here was not actually being drawn into this at all.
More than half, maybe.
Yeah. What you did was you allowed the vital ground that you wanted to deny to the enemy to become the great thing that you must hold at all costs. Yeah, and it doesn't matter.
All right, folks, would you do us the honour of showing us what really happened?
Our pleasure.
Very kind. Let's have a look.
Now, the Roman army is laid out in a way that Aëtius, the Roman general, thinks it's going to be the most effective. He's got his Romans on the left. He's got his weakest troops, the Alans, who are pretty similar to the Huns, in the middle. They're the mobility. And on the right side, he's got the Visigoths. But the very first thing he does is he sends his cavalry round to take the high ground.
Now, Attila is out there with a bunch of wild and woolly people. He's got his own Huns in the center, he's got Gepids on the right, and on his left he's got Ostrogoths. And far to his rear, Attila has got a big circle of wagons with the women, children, supplies, remounts, which we'll demonstrate here with this biali. So that's in the rear, and that's lunch for all of these horse out here. Attila did not see until it was too late that he was going to lose that piece of vital ground, and he desperately attempts to deny it by sending some cavalry up there, but it's no use. Now, at this point, Attila just goes at it without having that piece of ground. Attila just moves out there, he's going after the Romans.
So he's made inroads in the centre, and the Alans, who, as Aëtius recognised, were his weakest troops, are beginning to buckle under the strain. But he's still holding his own on his side with the Romans, and on this side with the Visigoths. So Aëtius takes the decision to send his Visigoths round the side in the hope that he can get behind and actually get to their wagon before they can get back.
And Attila sees this. He sees this in time, and he turns to the side, and he's able to go for the Goths' flank. Instead of cutting off the Huns, they get sucked into fighting the Huns. It all goes to hell in a handbasket. And all Attila can see when he looks up the hill is his allies, the Gepids, and they're engaged with some pretty chunky Romans, and he goes with his instinct. So Attila goes with his instinct, he pulls his Huns off the field, they go back to the wagon train.
The next obvious move for Aëtius is to finish the Huns while he can. He's got Attila, the scourge of God, the man who swept across Europe, in the palm of his hands. All he needs to do is besiege this wagon train. What does he do? He doesn't attack. The question is why, and the answer possibly, we don't know for sure, but the answer possibly is that he thinks that if he wipes out the Huns, the Visigoths are going to become the Romans' next great enemy, and they will pose just as big, if not a bigger threat, and therefore he leaves enough of the Huns as a danger.
Just a year later, Attila regrouped his forces and crossed the Alps into Italy, where he sacked several cities and even threatened Rome. Aëtius' famous victory at Chalons earned him celebrity amongst his fellow Romans, but the envy of the Emperor Valentinian, who subsequently murdered the 60-year-old Aëtius with the imperial sword. Within a generation, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed.
So that's what happened. Just before we finish, I want you to reassure us that none of you is actually involved in any real battle planning for the British Army. That's reassuring. Thanks for playing the game. Well done. Thanks, Jackie. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Very nice indeed.
Julius Caesar's rebel army fights for control of the Roman Republic tonight at 8 o'clock. Coming up on UK TV History, how women fought for their rights in the People's Century.